Welcome to All Things Keto. I am Dr. Pete. I'm your host. I'm a PhD biochemist, certified health coach, and I hold additional certificates in the area of the application of ketogenic diets in clinical settings. And recently I became a course designer for online courses in regard to the ketogenic diet for the Nutrition Network. And the topic of my presentation today is to respond to some of the notifications that I've gotten on the internet. And in particular, what I want to address here in a presentation that hopefully will not be too long are some of the misconceptions that keep showing up or being thrown at those of us that know about the ketogenic lifestyle and are using the lifestyle to do certain things. One of those things is to reverse chronic disease, because type 2 diabetes, obesity, and cardiovascular disease can indeed be reversed by shifting from a high carbohydrate lifestyle to a low carbohydrate, high fat, moderate protein lifestyle, or ketogenic diet as it's known, or the keto diet. The other aspect of this has to do with athleticism and experiences that I'm having, either seeing misinformation online, number one, being told that there's no science to back any of this up, number two, and number three, having experienced discrimination right to my face by various coaches who believe that, as an example, that you can't strength train if you're on the ketogenic diet, that you can't see an improvement in strength training if that's how you're eating, that in order to have improvement in strength training, that you need to be on a high carbohydrate diet. And to be absolutely clear about what I mean by high carbohydrate diet, the average American is eating about 300 grams of carbs a day. So you're talking about, in terms of athleticism, people eating even more than that. So the first premise here that I want to deal with is the issue of the accusation that there's a lack of science. There's not a lack of science. There have been papers published in this area since the mid-1800s. And jumping forward, skipping all the stuff about how the diet's been used to treat epilepsy and diabetes, which started in the early 1900s. If we skip forward to the 1980s, there's a guy, a scientist, a medical doctor, his name is Finney, who published seminal articles in the area of endurance bicycle racers, where he put them on a ketogenic diet. The diet, without going into all the details, because this thing would be hours long, they use the analysis of ketones. The bike riders were sequestered, and so they were fed a uniform diet. So Finney knew the percentage of fat, and he knew exactly what the level of carbs were, which were being held very, very low. And they fat adapted those athletes, which I think in that particular experiment they went 4 weeks. We know now that that time period for an average person is more like 2 to 3 months. But these were young, highly athletic, elite athletes, which is a difference between that type of individual and someone like me, who fat adapted a year and a half ago, and it took about 4 months for me, actually. In any case, those studies clearly showed that there were definite advantages to being on a ketogenic diet and being an athlete. So I'm going to go through the list of benefits, and I'm going to use notes. I have to, because otherwise I'm going to forget something. I'm not going to be efficient, and this video is just going to be too long. So for fat adapted athletes, and most of the hard science that we have, where they looked at people and took biomarkers, drew blood, biopsied livers, measured VO2s, all of it in sequestered, managed settings, which has occurred since the 80s too, including this guy Volek, right? There's a lot of very recent science behind what I'm talking about now. There's no ambiguity in this. These athletes have improved recovery when compared to an athlete who is on a high carbohydrate diet. They have reduced inflammation. Anecdotally, I can confirm both those things. Now I know, I just said the word anecdotally, right? I am not a scientific experiment, but I can confirm what I just said here. I have that experience now. We have enhanced fat metabolism. We burn fat at a rate which is more than twice that of someone who's not fat adapted. A carbo athlete, somebody who's loading carbs the night before, they're going out and they're doing some kind of extreme activity, they're burning significantly less fat than we do, and they're burning it at over 1/2 the rate that we burn fat. We have reduced oxidative stress on our systems. This is the reason why we have enhanced recovery, because literally we have less systemic damage done during extreme activities by comparison to somebody who's on a high carbohydrate diet. We don't bonk. The guys who are fat adapting and doing marathons and Ironman competitions and other extreme endurance sports like that are having greater success because they don't have to be literally pounding carbohydrate drinks and gels for the entire time that they're out there. They have less intestinal distress and all of the negative things that come along with that. They don't have that, and they don't bonk. We have better body composition. So what does that mean to someone like me who was a rock climber for 40 years and now getting back into it? It means our power to weight ratio is automatically higher, and that is a distinct advantage in a lot of different sports. We also have improved immune functions. So the reason why why we're having this presentation today is I just feel compelled to now respond to this issue again about, hearing in the mainstream that somehow this lifestyle is inappropriate for athleticism. It's not, all right? And I weight train now. I do strength training, and my deadlift is at 185 and I weigh 140 pounds. Now I know if some of the elite strength training guys are listening to this, they're going, well, Pete, Dr. Pete, that's not an extreme lift by any stretch of the imagination. But the fact is I do strength training and I don't really have a disadvantage with it. And the question that I would put back to them, it would be something along the lines of, okay, but I'm not trying to do what you're doing, right? I'm not going to these lifting competitions and trying for some kind of world record. My point is that I think even if I was trying to do that, I'm not sure I would have to start loading carbs. And the actual answer to that, we don't actually know it yet because the science hasn't caught up to it. But everything that I just talked about on this list is confirmed by valid research that's been done dominantly by Volek and Finney, and now there are many others that are also getting involved in this. So the keto diet is safe. We know that because the data stretches way back into the mid-1800s. We know that your cardiovascular system definitely improves. I don't care what marker you guys want to talk about, whether it's inflammatory markers, whether it's blood glucose values. And one last thing I think before I cut this off, we are glucose sparing. The fact that our metabolism is dominated by burning fat means that we have less requirement to utilize the glycogen. And that buys us a lot of advantages in any sort of athletic activity we take, because in order for us to accomplish what we want to do, we are not essentially solely dependent on the glycogen stores of our body, because we're burning fat at over twice the rate of anyone else who's in that room. So to clarify this, in an average human, they've got about 2,000 calories worth of energy stored between the muscle and the liver in glycogen. That's all they got. So a carb athlete, when they get to the bottom of that, they have to supplement what they're doing. They have to eat the gels. They've got to have an input of fast, sugary energy in order to compensate for the lack of glycogen. We, on the other hand, have access to up to 40,000 calories worth of fat. Even if you're on the, even if you have a body composition where you have a very, very small percentage of fat in or on your body, you probably still have a minimum of 20,000 calories available to you. And there are some individuals like these strength athletes that want to argue that you can't do heavy lifting. They have the really big bellies and stuff like that, and they've deliberately put on all this weight so that they can heave these 500-pound weights off the floor. They even have more fat calories than 40,000, right? They've got significantly more, but they can't access that energy because they are in the sugar burning mode. They might want to argue that the type of energy that they're burning is the creatine phosphate pathway, the creatine pathway, and glycolysis and so on. But again, you got to remember, because we're fat burners and we're glucose sparing, we go less hard on that energy. And I can also speak anecdotally to the climbing that I've done in the last month or so since I've been off of school, that I have yet to experience the forearm burns that I used to get when I was a carb athlete. You just don't have them. I mean, when I fall off a route now, I'm falling off because I can't do the move. And then I'm looking at the situation before I get back on the rock. But I'm not hanging on to things and feeling my fingers opening up. Not like the old days, right? And that's because I'm glucose sparing. I'm utilizing fat energy. So, I would suggest to the athletes out there that are closed off about this, and the nutritional specialists that I hear a lot from, that to really improve in your life, in anything that you do, if you're a nutritionist and you're trying to advise an athlete, if you're a rock climber and you are pushing at the top of the limits, you owe yourself to actually open your mind up and look at the science before you just automatically tell us that isn't going to work for you. Because honestly, the data and the science, it doesn't support that contention. And the emerging science is also not negating what I'm talking about. In fact, it's adding just more and more support to this whole model, that being fat adapted is very, very advantageous to most athletes. All right, and with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off.